You're not coming in. You're not coming in. Simple as that. You're not coming into our sacred spaces. You're not coming in.
It's a sacred ground.
You're not coming in. You're not coming in.
Why not? Why can't I come in? Because I said you're not.
This is Larry Krasner's town hall at Mother Bethel Church at Society Hill.
Sacred spaces. You're not coming on sacred spaces.
Where were you yesterday? Where were you yesterday?
You're not coming in our sacred spaces. Simple as that. Because I said you're not coming in. I'm saying you're not coming in.
You have no right to tell me.
You're not coming in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're not coming in our sacred space. You'll see what it means. I don't care. You'll see what it means to come up in here. You're going to see what it means.
He said don't threaten people. Don't threaten people, he said. Don't threaten people.
We were trying to come to the event. They denied us entry. They have a human wall. They have the blue wall.
You know what's world? In 2025, we are watching grown adults trying to storm a black church because they're mad about a sermon. And let us sink in for a second. Not protesting outside, not writing angry tweets, actually trying to force their way into a house of worship. And when they got blocked, literally, physically blocked by parishioners, linking arms, they had the audacity to scream about their rights being violated. This is not just another culture we are skimmish. This is something far more sinister, far more historical loaded, because when MAGA supporters showed up at Mother Bethel Church in Philadelphia, trying to barge through the doors, they weren't just crushing a Sunday service. They were stepping into a 234-year-old tradition of resistance, and the God reminded quickly why you don't mess with sacred ground that was bought with blood, sweat, and the refusal to bow. So buckle up, because we are about to unpack what this moment matters, why it's connected to centuries of American violence, and why the response from that congregation was not just justified, it was necessary. Good people, I'll be back. Let us watch these clips.
Hey guys, it's Leash. Listen, so, God, why? I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another. So, apparently there's this whole push for MAGA folks. I'm assuming it's, and let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming it's just white males of the MAGA movement that have been attempting to go, or are attempting to go into black churches to protest because of the sermons that were preached by certain black ministers about Charlie Kirk that was not to MAGA's liking, right? So you're going to go into these houses of worship to do what? You know what I'm saying? You're going in there to, interrupt worship of God. You're going in there to cause commotion in the house of the Lord.
White people, stop playing with black church. Y'all, seriously, stop playing with black church. Because watching what happened yesterday at Mother Bethel, and shout out to every black body, every white ally that held the line for that little raggedy white boy that was trying to sow seeds of discontent, right? Mother Bethel is the oldest piece of land, not church, the oldest piece of land owned by African Americans in this country.
I'm just trying to figure out how is it black people's fault that Mr. Kirk has been unalive and he has passed away, when it clearly was one of the their people that had done the crime. Okay, the family's background, everything, it was all, basically MAGA blueprint, Republican blueprint, and things didn't go the guy's way. He knew Charlie Kirk, and say something went down, and then he turned against Charlie Kirk, and what ended up happening was Charlie Kirk was unalived at the end because of it. So I'm just trying to figure out, how's it black people's fault, and why y'all always displacing y'all angers on the wrong fucking people, and this y'all's problem. Y'all are pathetic and sorry.
Okay, let's say the scene at the Mother Bethel AME Church, Philadelphia, the oldest piece of land continuously owned by African Americans in the United States. That's not just a fun fact, that's a statement. And this church has stood since 1791. It has survived everything America could throw at it. Slavery, segregation, race riots, white flight, gentrification, you name it. And then recently, conservative commentator Charlie Kirk dies. Now, whether you loved him or hated him, death is death. And people, they do grieve. But here's where things get twisted. Some of Kirk's followers, angry about how certain black churches had critiqued his rhetoric while he was alive, decided the appropriate response to their grief was to storm those churches. Guys, I'm sorry, I don't know if you get it, but you're mourning a political commentator. So you target black congregations. You redirect your pain into racial aggression. That's not grief. That's weaponized entitlement. That's saying we are upset so you need to pay. And historically, when certain segments of white America get upset, black spaces, especially black churches, become the punching bag. So these MAGA supporters show up at Mother Bethel demanding entry. They claim it's a public space. They invoke the First Amendment. They are yelling about free speech and, religious freedom, completely obvious to the irony that they're trying to violate the religious freedom of the people actually worshiping there. And the congregation, they formed a human wall, bodies linked together, blocking the entrance, and they said with their chests out, you're not coming in. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. You guys are not going to get in this church. Now, if you don't know the history, you might think this is overblown. You might say it's just a church. Why not let them in and debate them? Why not engage? But here's what you need to understand. Black churches ain't just building with pews and hymnals. They are sanctuaries in the truest, most literal sense of the word. They are the spaces carved out when every other door was slammed shut. They are the institutions built when white churches say, you can worship here, but only in the back, only in the balcony, only where you can see you. So Mother Bethel itself was born from humiliation. And in 1971, Richard Allen, a formerly enslaved man who bought his own freedom, was praying at St. George's Methodist Church. And in the middle of the prayer, he was physically yanked up and dragged out for kneeling in the wrong section. Not after service, not during a break, during a prayer. They grabbed this man while he was talking to God and threw him out because his blackness offended their white sensibilities. And Richard Allen didn't beg to come back. He didn't write letters asking for inclusion. He said, it's fine, we'll build our own church. And he did. He purchased land. Think about that, by the way. A black man in 1791 purchasing land in America and founded what will become the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Mother Bethel was the first, the birthplace of black ecclesiastical independence in America. So when those MAGA supporters showed up in 2025, they weren't just showing up to a church. They were showing up to the church, the one that literally exists because white people couldn't stand the sight of black people praying near them. The one founded on the principle that black folks will worship on their own terms, free from white control. Every black church in America carries this legacy. They remember the whites-only pews. They remember the bombings. During the civil rights, churches were targeted specifically because they were the heart of the movement. Talk about bombing up bomb. 67-year-old Denise McClare, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Addie Mae Collins killed in Sunday school at 16th Street Baptist Church. For what, guys? For existing in a space that dared to organize, to resist, and to affirm black humanity. And it didn't stop in the 60s. Charleston, in 2015, Emmanuel Church AME Church, Dylan Rove sat through an entire Bible study, was welcomed with open arms, and then murdered 9 people in cold blood. Why? Because in his words, he wanted to start a race war because he saw that the black church as a symbol of something he needed to destroy. So when those parishioners at Mother Bethel linked arms and blocked that door, They weren't becoming, or they weren't being dramatic. They weren't overreacting. They were hearing the echoes. They were hearing Birmingham. They were hearing Charleston. They were hearing every single time that political rage and racial hatred showed up at the church door, disguised as something else. But guys, allow me to talk about the audacity, the sheer unmitigated gall of the argument that these churches are public spaces and therefore anyone can enter. First of all, legally no churches are private property. They have every right to control who enters. You don't get to walk into a mosque during Juma and start preaching Christianity. You don't get to walk into a synagogue on Shabbat and disrupt service because you're angry about your politics. Why? Because those are sacred spaces with their own rules, their own boundaries, with their own set of regulations, with their own communities, and they need their own respect. But beyond the legality, there is something deeply revealing about this argument, and it exposes a belief system where everything, even holy ground, should be accessible to certain people whenever they want it. It's the same entitlement that let white Christians drag Richard Allen out of St. George's in 1971. It's the same entitlement that firebombed black churches in the 60s because those people are getting too uppity. It's the same entitlement that murdered 9 people in Charleston because one white supremacist couldn't stand the idea of black spiritual autonomy. The subtext is always the same. Your spaces ain't really your spaces. Your boundaries ain't really your boundaries.